Programming Throwdown, episode 100. 100th episode. Take it away, Patrick.
Well, it is April of 2020, and the whole world is experiencing COVID-19.
Yep.
So we're going to have a celebration of our 100th episode. We're going to try not to dwell too much on it. We have some work from home stuff we might talk about in another episode or two, and some tips and tricks we've learned. But this week, we want to use our intro topic to complain about how terrible all video conferencing is. Now that we're all stuck dealing with it all the time, video conferencing is hard. I get it, but man, it's just brutal. The latency, and for me, I never knew until this. We talked about to various guests who work remotely and talking about working remotely, and when everyone works remotely individually and with the current latency and everything, what I underestimated is how hard it is to read a room. So how much I rely on like saying something and looking at people and understanding, are they hearing what I'm saying? Is it interesting? Do I need to like explain it because they look confused? And I just have given up on that. It's like doing the podcast. It's just talking to an empty audience and hoping that at the end they'll ask questions.
Yeah, exactly. The latency for me is such a killer. And I feel like it's something that could be solved so easily. I mean, basically, I think the actual true latency, like if I want to send a packet to any one of the people on the call, that should be much less than a second. So it's really just that there's buffering and, they want it to feel natural and not stutter and everything, which that makes sense. But then at least give us something where we can like I could press the space bar and my face would just glow so people know that I have something to say. And then maybe like, when someone's talking, the person who wants to talk next could just press the space bar. And if like two people do it at the same time, it would just randomly pick one. But instead, what you have is, somebody talks and then they never really know if someone else has anything to say. So they keep talking. Finally, they stop. And then there's this pause and everyone interrupts each other at the same time.
Yeah, some of that I feel like cultural and etiquette are going to evolve. I think this might be one of those things we look back on, depending on how all this lasts, and laugh about how bad it was in the beginning. And I think maybe we kind of devise some etiquette for how to do stuff. So like what is appropriate or inappropriate? How do you, like you said, like, did you raise your hand and someone is like the shell holder and they pass the shell to the next person and, they're the ones who get to speak. Yeah, I don't know. I think we can make it better. But for now, not good.
Yep. It's just a painful period. But I think actually one thing that really impressed me is the fact that like you could have 20, 30, even 40 people in a call. We use this software called Blue Jeans where I work. I think it might only be for enterprise. I don't know if like anyone can just go on Blue Jeans. I'm actually gonna look this up now. I think it. Oh no, it has a trial. Yeah, so it's basically for enterprise. It costs money, but it's amazing how many people can go in one call. That part really impressed me. So I actually feel like the technology, given the way the media is, the technology is pretty good, probably as good as it could get. But it's just that, just the limitations require us to communicate a little differently, and we just haven't figured that out yet. I mean, what's your take? Do you think that the tech itself is bad, or just that we haven't figured out how to use it?
I think both. So I think that's I guess a cop-out answer. So I mean, I think the tech, the latency is tough, but I think we've also just not adjusted to the sort of norms for it, and doing these big group, like running things the same way they used to run. So we continue to run online meetings like we used to run in-person meetings. And I think maybe that's just not the right way. I don't know what the right way is, but maybe that's not the right way. So even just the UI, so we've had large meetings similarly with our software with 20, 30 people, but then like it won't fit all of the faces on the screen at the same time. Like how do you choose who to display? I don't think the sort of the way we'd always use it before is like one room connecting to another room or one person dialing into a meeting. We've never had a, 20, 30 person meeting where everyone's in their own room. And so it is actually, as you said, somewhat impressive that it works at all with that many people and getting all of the video streams into one place, processing them and sending them out back to everyone. I mean, that is not an easy problem.
Yeah, I think you're right. The latency is is something that I don't think it can really be solved if you're sending video, especially at that quality. But yeah, it just needs to be handled better so that so that people can communicate without cutting each other off. Maybe another way of putting it is I feel like the technology is good, but the product isn't good. Maybe that's a better way to say
But I would say maybe the product wasn't built with this use case in mind. Like it's the most adjacent thing, but it wasn't, at
Yeah,
least how we're using it, it's not the most adjacent.
you're
Or
totally right.
it wasn't designed for that use case.
Yep, yep. Yeah,
And
it's
then
almost
all
like
of
someone
those
needs to make
people,
a new product.
yeah. And all of those people are working from home using their own product trying to build the fixes. So they also are struggling, right? They're all like, no, our
Yeah,
person
exactly.
team, this is not working well. So I'm sure it's a pain point for them and they're probably trying to fix it, but it'll take time for them too.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, I wonder, I don't know if even being the leader right now is even an advantage because things like WebRTC are standards, so anyone can make a WebRTC app. I'm sure there's a lot of complexity around the details there, but if someone comes up with a new way for 10 people to all talk with each other without constantly interrupting each other, I think they could easily disrupt uh, whoever's at the top right now. I guess maybe Zoom is at the top. I don't know.
They seem to be the most one in the press. So
I
I'm gonna,
know they're constantly in the press, and some of the things are pretty wild. I don't know how true they are. Something like all of the information is going to like a server offshore or something. I don't know. There's a lot of weird stories about Zoom.
yeah, well, I mean, it's the classic engineering trope to say that I understand one thing, I understand all the things. So this can't be that hard. Uh,
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
So you're right. Maybe an opportunity for someone new in the space to come in and to take advantage of all this. I don't know. I guess we'll wait and
Yeah,
see. Although the internet pipes might just fall over. Uh, I know
yeah.
for me at least.
Are they still doing standard def for YouTube and all the video streaming, Netflix?
Yeah, I think that a lot of them are rolling it out. Just they're crumbling under the 300, 400, 500% increase in utilization. I think YouTube, they changed the default down, but you can still bump it back up
Oh, I
if you
see.
if you elect to.
Got it.
So.
Yeah, I mean, it's just completely unexpected to have something like 300% increase in usage for something like YouTube. It's unbelievable. All
So
right.
for news and our sites of the month.
Sites of the month. I like that.
Oh, I just made that up right now. Um,
Sites
so so my first one is I did not know about this before, and then people publishing this like now that and we should give a shout out. If you've been furloughed or lost your job, my heart goes out to you because
Yeah.
I think that's happening to a lot of people. I'm very fortunate it hasn't happened to me. But I know that's a lot of people. So complaining about work from home is a little bit of a privileged stance, I guess, because it's good to actually be able to work. So if you haven't been, apologies, shout outs. I know students are struggling right now. A lot of part-time
Yep.
work has disappeared. So my heart goes out to you. If you do have free time though, or you're just stuck inside because you're under a shelter-in-place somewhere in this wonderful world, this site I didn't know that this even existed before. Now that it did, I'm got it open and I'm starting to kind of do this, and that's learn.unity.com. And this is sort of the Unity platform, which I think we had a whole episode about. Their website for learning how to program and use Unity, and they've made these teaching sessions free for 3 months, and they have projects like a first-person shooter or like a go-kart game where you can go in and make modifications, small changes, learn how it works. And I think that's really cool. For me, starting from scratch or even with just a game engine or something like Unity and building up a whole project is pretty intimidating. But I definitely could go in and change some of the assets for a first-person shooter or the physics or change it into, adding up some HUD or something. And they have a number of tutorials here that are free, at least for the next 3 months. I wasn't able to find out how much it costs normally. It didn't look that hard. But for the next 3 months, at least, this is a cool thing to be able to do. So if you've ever had an interest in sort of playing around in game programming, I would take advantage of this. I'm planning to download some of these projects and sort of goof around with them myself. I think for my kids, it would be a good opportunity. Yeah, they're probably not going to use this to learn to program. They're still a little bit young. but have them tell me what they would like to see and be able to do it for them and be the kind of hero in their eyes, at least, which I guess is a kind of a low bar, but be able to do something specific. I want a pumpkin. Oh, sure. Here, let's make a pumpkin. And then they can have a game that they helped build.
Yeah, this is awesome. I'm taking a look at it now. Yeah, there's a ton of really good resources here. Unity is definitely sort of taking over as the game engine now. And the thing about game engines is kind of like you know how you have those web apps that they make for the phone, and the things don't quite feel right. So because it's HTML and JavaScript, but they're trying to make it feel like the iPhone UI. The slider doesn't quite move right. There's not as much inertia on the slider. It's just kind of uncanny valley. I think that Unity is getting such a market share that everyone else is getting kind of put into that uncanny valley. Where now if I play a game that isn't on the Unity engine, they're just weird. It just doesn't behave like everything else. And so it's if you're interested in doing games, and they might even get into other sort of visual, if you have to do maybe interactive charts or something, might become a thing in Unity. So I think it's definitely a good thing to learn. It looks like after the 3 months, it costs $15 a month, which seems very reasonable if you're using it. You're getting a lot of content out of it. So cool. My thing of the show is dig.ccmixter.org. So CC Mixter is a site that has a ton of different audio resources, and dig.ccmixter is a bunch of free resources. So if you're making a YouTube video, if you're making a video game in Unity, if you want to take the background music that came with the Unity starter pack and replace it with something else, you can just go and grab any of these songs, and you can put them anywhere. As long as some of them are attribution licensed. So, in the credits of your game or your video, or in the comments, the description of your video, you have to give them a shout out. Which you should be doing anyways. But other than that, they're totally free to use, and there's a ton of content. They just hit their 1 million mark, or 1 million folks have used at least one song from there, which is pretty incredible. And it's a great resource. I love things like this and Freesound and other sort of sites that have tons of media for you to use, for your own projects.
That's pretty cool. I guess that dovetails in with the previous suggestions when you make your game and you want some cool music, and you can, we got a theme
exactly.
Going.
Yeah, so to break. I mean, by the end of this, if you are furloughed, which again, heart goes out to y'all, but you could use some of that time to make a pretty cool first-person shooter, learn some new tech.
So not building on the previous two, I have something completely different, which is physicstravelguide.com. And I've always had this sort of weird passing interest in physics. I've never been able to get into the rigor of it. I studied it I guess a little bit in high school and in college. And I never really got into sort of the deep physics or the theoretical physics and those kinds of things. But I found this website pretty good. And reading the explanation, it's like something I guess I never knew was missing, which is you get these, which is what I would give, so I won't try to for any of them. You get the sort of like armchair quarterback explanation of physics from your friend, which often leaves some to be desired. You could search whatever you're interested in Wikipedia and probably be overwhelmed by things you don't understand or complexity, which is what I often find for math and physics. And so this website tries to take a variety of topics, allow you to sort of look in whatever you're interested in, and then explains it somewhere in the middle. So it tries to be rigorous, but it gives you sort of an intuitive explanation. So something that just like, oh, okay, I get that kind of makes sense. And then they try to give you a sort of more formal, and then the fully sort of abstract with formulas and everything. But they also give you a bunch of links to follow up on and all of that. And they've got tons of articles here on just, all sorts of things about quantum mechanics. Here's Maxwell's equation, Schrodinger's equation, and there's brief, very sort of simple to understand high level stuff. There's, where to go from there, like how does it relate to the rest of physics? I found this a really interesting resource. I haven't sat here and read all of it, but I do find every so often I come across some idea and I'm thinking about it. I don't know why, and just wondering, I wonder how that works. And
Yeah,
here's a way
this
to
is
go
amazing.
look it up.
Yeah, there's so much good content here.
There's also just looking at it, I'm like, I have no idea what that is, and like click it, and then I get oh, okay, well, at least now I didn't know I knew that before, but that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, this is awesome. Yeah, I mean, I could easily, I know what I'm doing today. Yeah, I mean, this
While you're,
covers everything.
yeah, so things like magnetic monopoles, and do they exist? Why would they be important if they don't exist or do exist? And yeah, it's cool stuff.
Yeah, I
So
mean,
check it out.
they have this
Physics
whole
level guide.
equation section where they talk about all these different ways of solving problems. The
Physics
Einstein.
physics is one of those things that has sort of puzzled me when I think about it. It seems like throughout my career, various physics things have always come up, like topics just from the news or from someone's idle thoughts, and we'll bring it up in the office, which is one of the things I don't think comes up as much anymore. But it's one of those things that is a recurring theme where I don't need to know any physics to be able to do my job whatsoever presently. But it's something that I find that people who tend to do programming and stuff and be into it and like me also have a sort of passing interest. So I guess there's some similarity there. And it's one of those kind of quirky things that I guess there's no real reason why they need to be related, but I find that they often are.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. I mean, I think at the end of the day, the physics is kind of like what computer scientists did before there were computer scientists, right? So I mean, a lot of us like to build stuff and simulate things, and now it's now we can work sort of in the world of bits, but before, when there was only the world of atoms, I think that it's sort of natural. It's kind of a natural progression.
So for our next link, this is something I came across, which has been on my list of I would one day like to learn more about, which is the sort of rigorous formal computer science theorem proving. And I'm sure we've probably talked about various of languages used for this before. One is COQ. Is that Coke or Cock? I don't know. But
Yeah.
the other one is the lean theorem prover. And as soon as I try reading it, I instantly kind of nope my way out. Well, I think we've talked about AGDA before too, and I think AGDA is pretty similar. Maybe not. I don't know. See, I don't even know enough about this to know.
Yeah, this is wild. What is this?
So this lean theorem prover is one of these things where you try to take a theorem and through a series of, I guess you would call them transformations. I don't know. I need to kind of go all the way through it. Again, it's on my, maybe bucket list is too strong, but it's on my list of things to one day learn about, is to sort of take a set of transformations and prove a statement. So you might say that like the inverse of an inverse of a value is equal to the value itself, right?
Okay.
So you say like if I invert a value and invert it back, it's itself. So like, but why? How? Like, how do you prove that? Like, what is the sequence of steps to go through to explain that? Or the rule of, what is it, commutativity or associative rule, like these rules in mathematics. Like, how do you say that A plus B is equal to B plus A? Like, how do we know that that's universally true? How would you prove to a computer that this is something that it should take for granted? As a human, we trust other people have done it. But if you have a computer which has a set of, I guess, a language for describing what things are true at a base level, and you prove enough of those base level things and link them to each other in a certain way, the computer can go, yes, you have shown that this must be true now.
Oh, I see.
So this natural number. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, this graph is trying to do that.
So this natural number game, which is my link, we'll link it in the show notes. Presently, it's I think it was for some reason having some hiccups. It wasn't working so great for me. Has a sequence of things to go through, teaching you, I guess, a variant of the lean theorem prover, which is one of the tools people use to do this kind of work, by taking you through the steps of getting through sort of proving addition and how addition works and why it works, and going to, like I was saying, like that I always forget the rules. There's associativity and commutativity, and they have a sequence of learning steps laid out in a graph of one way you might go through the dependencies and build upon each other in your understanding while also teaching you how to do this theorem proving. And I thought it was a pretty cool approach for something that I've long wanted to understand. And maybe this is helpful to you if you've also wanted to learn about theorem proving.
Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, I've never been, into theorem proving, but my PhD advisor, he's famous for saying theory is worthless. That's like his thing. I think that obviously that's like a really extreme view. I mean, it's something that only someone who is a professor in neural networks would say. But I think that but I think that without it you can't really get started. I think a lot of the stuff that we take for granted, as you said, was because some people like took something that we kind of observed and were able to construct a pattern and generalize it. Yeah, this is totally awesome. And it actually has a really nice tutorial, and it walks you through like starting with the identity, like proving that x equals x. And then, or I guess at that point, that's an observation. Yeah, this is cool. Man, between this and the last thing, that's basically going to be my entire day now. It's awesome. Hey guys, we're going to take a little break to talk about University of California Irvine's Division of Continuing Education. So this is a pretty cool program. They have a variety of different kind of certificates that you could acquire. They have things like Python, they have data science, they have machine learning. And these are things where, if you didn't necessarily get, let's say, a degree in machine learning, or you haven't worked as a machine learning engineer for a bunch of years, this is a way to sort of get a lot of that knowledge, a lot of that expertise. And I know Patrick and I, we've both done a bunch of courses online, and so it's a really good way to sort of boost your knowledge and your skills in a particular area.
Yeah, I mean, I did tons of online classes when I first started working, and for me, being part of a class, I mean, it's always interesting, but the curriculum, the self-paced stuff, it works great sometimes, but sometimes having here's what we're doing each week, marching through their curriculum and going through it, it's very similar to how just a normal university class works. In fact, feeling like it's almost exactly the same is just a comfortable thing, a good way to learn, and learning from professors who, that's their thing. They teach, they help others to learn, and having access to it, doing the assignments. It really helped me go from, where my undergraduate left off to just kind of bootstrapping into more specifics, higher level things, things that were more pertinent to my job at the time. I hardly recommend people taking classes, continuing education from a college.
Yep. Yeah, I think getting it through a university is actually really, really stellar. I mean, it's really awesome that universities are starting to get into this. And that there's going to be sort of quality lectures and professors. There's a very strong brand behind any sort of major university, and usually Irvine's one of the top universities for CS. So they've been around since about 1962, I think, and they've been around a long time. They've been teaching a long time. They've been teaching online a long time. And so it's a good place to go and get this kind of education.
Yeah, if you're interested, I think they're still doing enrollment for some late classes for spring, but summer's upcoming. And as we've been talking about this whole episode, I mean, I think everyone has extra time at home these days.
Oh my gosh! Yeah.
If you're interested, you can check it out at ce.uci.edu/programming throwdown. And we'll put the link in the show notes, of course. But once again, that's ce.uci.edu/programming throwdown.
Yeah, and if you do sign up and take any courses, we'd love to get feedback. Please write us in, tell us what you think of it. We could pass it on to them, but also for us, it's really good to know, what you thought about that. Folks out there who are listening. So, all right, back to the show. Now it's time for Book of the Show. My book of the show is Influence by Robert Cialdini. This is a really interesting book. I actually read it a while back, but it kind of stuck with me. And it goes through the thing I love about this book. So I recommended another book by I think Scott Adams that was about influence, but that book was written by someone who I guess felt like they had a lot of influence. This is actually written by a professor who studies influence and studies, he's like a social scientist. And so they say a lot of, the beginning at least, they say a lot of things that are kind of obvious. But then they show, actually this ties in well with our last news article. They kind of show why these things are what they are. Like they kind of explain the causality there. And then they start jumping into, kind of more advanced topics or things that you wouldn't really expect. One of the things that really stood out for me was they said that if let's say you're in a traffic accident, and so you're on the highway, and let's say you have, I don't know, a broken arm or something, someone just hit you from behind, you have a broken arm, and let's say that person sped off. So you're in a bad spot, right? So they said one thing you should do is instead of like waving and trying to get all the car's attention at once, you should actually just stop a car or like pick one car and focus on them, or imagine the same thing if you're in a line and you're feeling like you're going to pass out or something. You pick one person in the line and you ask them directly for help. And the reason why is basically there's this sort of weird dynamic with influence where if someone isn't totally sure you're trying to influence them or somebody else, then nobody takes you seriously. And so if you pick one person, even if that person doesn't help you, by sort of focusing on them and getting rejected by that person, you immediately build like a ton of influence with the people right around them. And so, that was just one thing. I won't go through everything, but it talks a lot about social science. It explains like why car salesmen do what they do. It explains both good and bad influence. And I thought the whole thing was really fascinating. I think especially for introverts, this is a must read because like you can kind of see, for extroverts and for people who are naturally have a lot of influence, I think a lot of these things can come naturally or feel natural, but for everyone else, just getting the information, being exposed to it is extraordinarily valuable. And now you can kind of see, now that I've read the book, I kind of see, the attempt to influence in commercials and in when people write, sales pitches and all of that. You could kind of decompose it, deconstruct it, using all of this theory that's come out of this book. So it's a bit of a heavy read. It's written for lay people like us, so you don't have to be a social scientist. It doesn't use a lot of complicated terminology, but it's a pretty deep dive. So keep that in mind. But now's a good time, hopefully for a lot of folks to do some reading, and I think this is a good one to pick up.
You've influenced me. I feel the need to read this book about influence.
All right. Although then, so meta.
So this book must be working.
Yeah.
So my book of the show is a science fiction book called Columbus Day, which is part of a series, Expeditionary Force by Craig Allenson. And this, I read a lot of science fiction, fantasy. Since the last time we've done book of the show, I had actually a pretty long list, but I picked this one. It's the most recent one I've read, and I really enjoyed this. It was a pretty lighthearted read. Well, a pretty easy read, not a sort of deep sci-fi book, but it had some interesting ideas, which is, if it doesn't spoil too much. I checked the Amazon review and it's listed as sort of the summary. But if Earth was invaded by sort of an alien species and then some other alien species came and, did battle with them, and we sort of like, yay, they're our saviors, they fought off the bad guys. We actually have no context for that. We don't know how or why they did what they did. To sort of celebrate them as heroes makes sense, but could be wrong. And that if such people actually showed up, we don't know the grand scheme of species and aliens that would be out. So if someone showed up with vastly superior technology to us, we'd somewhat be subservient to them. But if we had a choice, we would have no broader context of the political scheme of where they came from. Like, who are their enemies? Are we aligning ourselves with like the really bad people of the universe? And like, are we going to become part of the, axis of evil? Like, we don't. you wouldn't really know. And it's sort of an interesting topic that we always think of ourselves as like kind of knowing what's what. And if somebody just showed, it's fiction, right? But if someone sort
Yeah.
of just popped into the sky, there would be actually very little we would understand. And what we were able to be communicated about might be very limited. So we may
I guess
not
all
know the
you
whole
know
story.
is that they don't like the people who are trying to kill you. That's the only piece of information you have, right?
Right. But the people trying to kill you, there are various levels of that, right? And so exactly what you can always spin it. But then if it gets spun, so they say, you can say, oh, they only were destroying large cities, right? Maybe they were just trying to prevent, make it a less valuable target. And so is that a kind-hearted thing to do or a terrible thing to do?
Oh,
Were they trying to
interesting.
help you or are they trying to hurt you? So yes, you're right. So if other people showed up and fought them off, all we know is that they fought them off. We
Yeah,
don't
right.
know. Are they the bad guys or the good guys? Should we go with them? Should we fight them? Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
awesome.
this book kind of plays on that theme.
Yeah, I've always been curious how people go, and this is probably a enormous tangent, but how science fiction writers go about world building. Like, do they usually start with something that happened on Earth, like, that they want to explore, and they just want to get rid of basically all the names and the places, but it's really like something that could happen on Earth between countries, or do they just start with a blank canvas and say, I want planets made of sodium, and then they just start exploring all the implications of that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it happens lots of different ways. If you're curious about this, I did stumble across a random Reddit the other day, which is the world building Reddit.
Oh,
So if you go to reddit.com/r/world building, they actually have a Reddit where people give maps for places they've invented. People give feedback, ask questions. What do you think about this? Exactly that. If the world was not mostly silica-based sand, but sodium everywhere, like what would be different? Um, and they kind of riff off each other, help each other think through the implications, and generally just sort of help out creative people with trying to think through what would happen. So, cool subreddit to check out.
yeah, it sounds awesome.
It's
Wow.
time for talking at first. I was going to skip the flow of the show, but I forgot. I haven't been driving in the car, but I still find that I haven't been actually reading the books either. I found downtime. I've still been listening to Audible, and so Audible, of course, is one of the people who help sponsor our show. And if you go to audibletrial.com/programming throwdown, you can get your first book free. You could get, I didn't check to see if they have Influence, but that's where I listened to this Columbus Day book. And I don't drive in the commute, but I still find that I use Audible. Just, the other day I think it was vacuuming, and I put on headphones and was listening to that while I was vacuuming because I guess I'm a weirdo. But I wanted to keep making progress on my books. So if you're interested in checking out listening to books, and you haven't yet, you could go to audibletrial.com/programming throwdown, get yourself a free book, also help out the show.
Yeah, yeah. Influence is I read or listened to Influence on Audible as well,
Oh, you did?
and
Oh, okay.
yeah, I think for me, my routine has been basically in the evening, I'll just lay down and I got these I got a new phone. I got the Pixel, I don't know, whatever it is. I think I got the 3. It wasn't the very latest one. So yeah, I got Pixel 3. It came with earbuds, and in the past I've not liked earbuds. They always kind of fall out of the ear, or you have the weird hoop around the ear. But these ones have a really interesting design where basically they shrink wrapped like a thick piece of plastic around the beginning of the wire coming out of the earbud, and then they took that wire and they like looped it and put it back, threaded it back through the earbud, and you can actually control the size of that loop, and that loop actually presses very gently against like the inside of your ear and kind of keeps it in place. And so for the first time, I feel like I can have earbuds. I can even like run with them and everything, and they're pretty comfortable. So what I've been doing is basically laying down, and that way, if you kind of roll over, you don't kind of squish like the headphone against your ear, and just kind of having some time to like kind of just close your eyes and listen to a book, especially with all of us working from home. We're not I find myself looking at screens way more because I'm either, helping out like the kids and they're doing something on a screen or I'm on a screen. And so this is just a good opportunity to not have to like read something or really focus your eyes on something. So yeah, and so you can totally get influence for free if you go to audibletrial.com/programming throwdown. Also, if you want to support us and you already have an Audible or you don't want to get an Audible account, you can support us directly on Patreon. Also, if you are a member on Patreon, you get the Patreon stream, which is has much higher bandwidth. So that part is nice. But yeah, check us out on Patreon, and we really appreciate all of the support.
Okay, well, now it's not too early to say that it's time for tool of the show.
Tool of the show. My tool of the show is VCPKG, or I don't know what that's supposed to actually be. Let me see. Yeah, it's VCPKG. It's something from Microsoft. It's a C++ library manager. It works really well. So basically, if you program in, let's say, JavaScript or TypeScript, then you're definitely familiar with npm or yarn. And so these are package managers. You can basically say, npm install React, and it will just go through, install React, install all the dependencies. It'll do all the work for you, so that in your code you could just type, import React, and it's just done. You don't have to worry about what it took to make that happen. For Java, there was Maven, which did this. For Python, there's Anaconda or pip. But for C++, there's been a variety of different tools, and I did a quick survey myself. There was, I think, one called Conan. There was one actually that Ethereum uses. I don't remember the name of it, but VCPKG from Microsoft seemed to be the best. And it worked really well. It's even though it's from Microsoft, you don't have to be on Windows to use it. But basically, you install this program, and then it's just VCPKG install whatever the C++ library is. It could be Boost, it could be Protobuf, it could be SDL, whatever you need. After you do that, then if you have to be using CMake for this to work. But then in your CMake file for your project, you pass in this VCPKG toolchain file, and then you're good to go. So you could just bang include Boost, and it's there. So I thought it worked pretty well. I mean, with C++, it's difficult because it's much more open-ended in terms of the build system and everything. But this struck a good compromise where it forces you to use CMake, but it's not holding your hand too much there. And on the flip side, it has a lot of packages and really good support.
Yeah, this is pretty cool. I'm gonna check it out. I always struggle with C++ and getting libraries and dependencies. And do you include the source in your source? Do you have everyone build their own libraries? Oh, it's always such a mess.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I try to include the source in the source. So if you look at Eternal Terminal, there's or any of the projects I have, there's an external folder, and there's a bunch of Git submodules in there. But for some things like Protobuf, it's just not practical. And so I relied on this, and so far it's worked pretty well.
Well, keeping with not recommending informational books or tools, I'm recommending a game. That game is Dead Cells. I guess most people probably heard about it, but I'm late to it. This is a roguelite Castlevania-inspired action platformer. Okay, I cheated. I read from their website because I didn't know how to describe it. So if you've ever played a Castlevania game and sort of doing the 2D platforming and also having things closed off that you don't know how to get to yet, yeah, this has kind of those elements. It also has rogue-like elements that, you make some amount of progress, but also like if you die, you kind of lose some of the stuff. And I really find it pretty cool. And I first started playing it, although it had been out for a while on other platforms, on my iPad. And there it's a little tough because some parts require kind of a lot of precision. But I still thoroughly enjoyed it. The art style is pretty cool. The kind of atmosphere of the game is really nice. And the awesome thing is it's available on, I think like the Xbox, PlayStation, the Switch. I know it's on iOS. It didn't look like it's on Android yet, but most people probably have at least one of many of those things. On the PC as well, I believe it's on Steam. And so if you haven't checked it out before and that description sounded interesting, or you go look it up and see the video, it sounds interesting, and check it out. But I really like that game. It's really cool. I definitely have not, I definitely do not, so I have not won or made tons of progress, but I do keep playing it.
Cool. So it's a Castlevania game, so you're kind of running around like slashing at things.
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And you have various weapons you can switch out or change or customize your person, and you kind of unlock better stuff as you make progress, kind of like a rogue.
Oh, okay. Cool. I'll check it out. There was one called Wayward Souls, which was like it sounds similar, but one thing I didn't like about that game is it was, do you remember those, remember like, like the original Zelda? How it was kind of
Yes.
like a top down, but not really. It's also kind of from the side too, right?
Isometric? I think it's isometric.
Is it isometric? Yeah, it could be. Yeah, so the Wayward Souls was isometric, and so that made it kind of difficult to judge the distances. So it sounds like the Dead Cells is like a platformer, like a side view.
It's like a side. Yeah, exactly. Yes.
Yeah, that might be easier. Cool. Yeah, I'll check that out. I'll probably pick that up. I'm a huge gamer, so I'm actually surprised I hadn't heard of that. So I'm gonna.
Oh, really?
Go grab it.
Okay.
It's on mobile, you said?
I don't know if it's on Android. I looked. I couldn't. It didn't look like it was, but it's on nearly everything else. So I actually don't know why it's not on Android.
Oh, okay, got it.
So since you already just said you have a Pixel, you might be left out. Oh, it says it's coming on June 3rd. It says Android on June 3rd.
All right.
So
cool. Maybe I'll pick it up on PC.
So for our topic, we decided to do something a little bit different. So I had this idea, and then I kind of looked, and I became enamored with it. So if everyone hates it, you can send your hate mail to Jason. People say they can't tell our voices apart, so they don't know who's talking anyways. So I thought, we did 100 episodes. I didn't want to do something super celebratory or patting ourselves on the back, because just because we're dumb enough not to quit doesn't mean that we've done something great. But what I did say is it's been 9. So our first episode was in 2011, and people throughout the years have written us and told us how funny it is to go back and listen to early topics. But I wanted to take some of the show notes that we had from our early episodes. I don't know how many we're going to do. We'll just sort of see. And we'll sort of take turns or do it together and just sort of read through some of the topics and talk about how times have changed or how things have changed. And, just sort of a little bit of a look back. And funny because, we're talking at the beginning, even, video conferencing and how it just takes time for a culture to sort of grow up around it. And so I'm pretty sure we'll find some insights here about what things have or haven't changed. Maybe some languages have gone, and maybe some languages are never going to go away. But we're going to take it away. So I'm going to take it with the very first one, Jason. I'm taking it all the way back to February of 2011. Oh, sorry, March of 2011. Sorry, you're going to say.
One thing to tell people is Patrick's agreed to do the odd episodes, and I've agreed to do the even, and we've also agreed not to read the other one. So this is going to be a surprise to me, and mine are going to be pretty surprising to Patrick too.
Yep. Okay. So episode 1. So here it goes. So the first thing that I have in the show notes that we talked about was the fail overflow PS3 hack, which we warned people not to watch the video that we posted a link to because we didn't want someone to get into trouble for all the takedowns that happened.
Oh man, I remember that.
So
actually my because of that. Oh no, never mind. There was actually an unrelated hack and a bunch of. Remember when the PlayStation the store was hacked and all of our credit cards got leaked out?
Oh yes.
But I think this is different. This is hacking the actual hardware.
So the next one is going to be. We know it's there, but it's coming. So we talked about Bitcoin. Yes, we talked about Bitcoin in March of 2011. And yes, if we had bought $100 of it, even today, I think we would still have millions of dollars. Yep. So Bitcoin, Jason, what do you think about Bitcoin? You think it's got a future?
No, it's not going anywhere. I think what we should do is we should take the Bitcoin that we mined on our university computer and software, take all those coins and sell them for $6 a piece. That's what we should do.
Yeah, what would you say? What would you say if I would sell you some Bitcoins for like 10 cents?
Yeah, that'd be awesome. Yeah, I'll take it.
How many would you like to buy?
Oh my
So we
gosh.
talked about the Bitcoin Java client and what Bitcoin was. Oh man. Then we talked about comics, COMIX, which I believe is like an
Oh
e-comic
yeah.
reader.
Yeah, that's right,
Yeah.
man. Wow, that's
That was
wild.
before that was before like Comixology and Amazon having like Kindle Comics, which is how
Yeah.
I view myself today. That was before you had all that subscription stuff. So that's changed a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean the whole
And
universe
Marvel
is so different.
movies and yeah, the way comics work today and how they're in mainstream culture is super different.
So this is a good one. Episode 2, uh well, there was a TED Talk for a guy who tells some pretty funny jokes using math, but I actually really like this. We had a video making fun of Hillary Clinton not knowing what Firefox was. And so, spoiler alert, Patrick and Jason know who wins every election. We could just call it right here.
Uh,
That was in March 25th, 2011. Man, that's hilarious. So on the news, iOS 4 was on the news, and yeah, Apple II emulator. It's pretty cool. Yeah, this is a wild throwback. So is there anything interesting in some of the episode 3 stuff?
yeah, so I'm looking at episode 3 now, and I mean, so I see that the tool of the day for me was KeyPass. So apparently, I used to actually give useful tools of the day, not games. And I still use KeyPass. And so I'll use this for a
Yeah,
second
me
as
too.
a little different. But someone was asking me, someone recently had a death in their family, and they were sort of saying, how do you make sure that like other people would be able to access it? And I didn't have a great story for like if both my wife and I passed away, but I was like, basically for my wife and I, we keep all of our passwords in a KeyPass safe that we have sort of backed up and synced really well so that if something happened to me, she could get into all my accounts. And then we have a very long, unique password with strong instructions to never use that password anywhere else for that KeyPass safe. And I felt pretty good about that. And so
Yeah.
that's sort of my strategy. But apparently, I must have started. I've been using KeyPass for 9 years, so since April of 2011. And you use it
Yeah.
too?
Yeah, I've been using it since we found it in that show, which is totally bonkers. So
Nice.
that's a product that is really solid.
So here's a good news article. Google hires the inventor of Java to work on Android.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah.
So this is
Yeah,
James Gosling that was talked about.
yeah, that's right. So I have a funny story actually. So I ended up meeting James Gosling, and he gave a presentation, and he came to the presentation with a shirt that said, well, it said F word PowerPoint. So the shirt just said that, and like I think he must have made it himself because it just was like in Arial, like whatever the default font is that comes with MS Paint. He just got that and then went to a t-shirt transfer company or something. It just said F PowerPoint, and then he just gave a whole presentation with no screen at all, like he just talked. And I thought that was hilarious. And then I think about 6 months after he joined Google, he quit, and he went to work on some robotics thing. But who knows
Yeah,
what
I don't know
happened?
how long he was there for, but yeah, he's not at Google anymore, I don't think. I think he's moved on.
Yeah.
All right.
In episode 8,
What
we
about
talked.
episode?
Oh, I was going to jump to 8. We talked about
Yeah,
a
that's fine.
developer versus programmer versus computer scientist, which I think that's actually still today a pretty
Oh,
relevant
interesting.
thing. That it's actually surprising that almost a decade later we haven't we still just call everyone software engineer. Although now there's machine learning engineer, so at least there's like I guess some type of distinction.
Yeah, so I see in here in episode, oh, where was it? In episode 5, I was going to say that that was the first time apparently we thought it was newsworthy that iOS would allow you to do updates over the air. You wouldn't have to plug into
Oh,
your computer to update your phone.
that's amazing. Oh my
So,
gosh.
so
So good.
that's pretty good. Oh man, things were so different. I don't even know that I had a smartphone at that time.
Oh, okay. In episode 10, Minecraft was still owned by Notch, and
Oh,
someone was claiming Bethesda actually. Wow, I totally forgot about this. So Bethesda, I guess, had a game, and the Notch was making another game, and they had the same name, and Bethesda said they were going to sue, and Notch said he'll play their best player in Quake 3, and if Notch wins, he gets the name. And if the Bethesda employee wins, then Bethesda gets the name.
that game never came out though, right?
No. Yeah, he did make another game called Fun with Blocks, which I bought foolishly, thinking that, any game Notch makes would be amazing, and it was actually terrible, to be honest. But
Wow, I can't believe this is this long ago. So moving into 2012, episode 15, we covered that Facebook was going to IPO.
oh my gosh.
Oh no, I guess that they did IPO, but they IPO'd and they went down. And we were saying how it was like, I guess, a little bit of Schadenfreude probably at the time, but people were covering that they were blaming that they went down 11% right after they IPO'd in 2012. I'm pretty sure I would take it at the IPO price now.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the IPO price was like $15 and it went to 12 or something. Yeah, I would definitely take that.
Oh man, yeah, it's crazy perspective, man. So yeah, but I remember that doesn't feel that long ago.
Yeah, in episode 12, we introduced the Raspberry Pi to our listeners,
Oh,
and I don't
that's
think it had
crazy.
come out much before that.
I mean, Raspberry Pi is like, yeah, Raspberry Pi, and even people largely have been, well, no, I guess that's not true. Arduino and Raspberry Pi, I guess, are just such staples now. Like
Yep,
it's
yep,
kind of hard to imagine what it would be like without those.
yep. In episode 14, we announced the Pebble, and
Oh,
they're out of
wow.
business.
They got
So,
acquired, right? Didn't Intel buy them or no?
well, kind of. I mean, they basically went out of business. I mean, they were acquired, but it was not a good price, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, okay. So episode 17, we're in August of 2012, and we talked about the gangbuster selling of the Ouya video
Oh my
game
gosh,
on
I remember
Kickstarter.
that.
The,
Oh man,
the
I remember
Ouya.
looking at that and being like, that is amazing. It's exactly the console I want. It plays all these awesome Android games. And then, yeah, like 6 months later, it was gone, right? It's wild.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I don't think they raised 8 points. I'm clicked on the Kickstarter page now. They raised $8.6 million. I don't think anyone probably plays Ouya today, right? Maybe
No,
someone does.
there's no way. I mean, I would say even stronger than that. I don't think anyone played Ouya a year after they got it. Oh
Oh
man,
man,
in episode 16, we announced the very first Microsoft Surface.
oh wow. Do you remember Surface used to be like a tabletop like presentation
Oh
thing for
yeah,
companies, and then they just like decided the name was too good to use on that, and so they decided to use it for tablets.
yeah, I remember that. Actually, I remember watching a video of people playing D&D on
Ooh.
that huge screen that was horizontal like that, and it looked amazing.
Wait, were they in the same room though?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a bunch of people in the same room playing
No!
D&D on a Surface, and they had their own
Social
like
distance.
3D models that they had printed and put on top of the table. It looked amazing.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, here we go. The Wii U is getting ready to come out, man. It's 2012. Do you think that's going to be a success? I
Oh,
don't know.
here's something that will never work. In 2012, Apple buys fingerprint scanning company.
What? Oh man, I cannot believe we've been doing this long. They don't even do fingerprints anymore,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's
it just
everything's
came
all
and
Face
gone.
ID now. So
Yeah. Oh my
that's
gosh.
crazy. So we were there long enough to they acquired a company, delivered a product, changed everything, and then deprecated it.
Yep.
Yeah, wow. History moves a lot faster than you think.
Yeah, that's nuts.
Oh man, all right.
It's
I don't know
funny,
anymore. I'm not sure.
I can look at these and I know immediately who found this. Like wooden computer kit. This definitely came from Patrick in episode
That is
22.
absolutely true. That is absolutely true. Yeah, that's true. The news articles definitely have a fingerprint on them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I remember talking about this stuff. I can't believe, well, whatever. Anyways, I can't believe this is 7 years ago. in January of 2013. I remember talking about the Bigelow inflatable space station modules that they were going to send up to the ISS. They ended up sending some up and testing it, but I mean, I don't think anything's come of it. I don't hear about it anymore.
Yeah. Wow. Episode 32, How to Start a Machine Learning Startup. That was back in 2014. Yeah, so many of my friends around this time left to start machine learning companies. And well, it depends on it depends on your definition of failure. I mean, so if the company gets acquired, and you get paid basically what you would have made if you had just kept your regular job, like you could consider that a success in a sense, because like you got to start a company and but if you define success as like now you have a business that's self-sustaining, every single machine learning startup that I know failed. Which is, I think at the end of the day, machine learning is like a good tool to make something better, and that thing that you made better should be the company. Like you could argue like Google, has a better search engine because of machine learning, and or maybe statistics, whatever you want to say, but at the end of the day, they weren't like a statistics company. They built a search engine. And so all the people who set out to say like, we're going to do deep learning and charge people for it, that didn't really work out.
Yeah, I'll do a couple more. So in September of 2013, episode 29, we had an article that Nissan was going to have self-driving by 2020.
Oh man, Nissan would have self.
They got 8 months. They have 8 months left.
Still holding out. I think. I think. Well, here's the thing. If they do so, not Nissan, they're out. But if anyone does self-driving highway, which I think Tesla already has, right? Then,
depending on your definition, yes.
Oh, really? Yeah. I mean, I think if you could go rest stop to rest stop without touching the steering wheel, that's my definition.
Oh, so you're trying to say that we should take show notes for predictions for our 200th episode? Is that what I hear you saying?
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh, can you imagine what the world's going to look like?
2029?
Wow, it'll be nuts. Oh, episode 36, Twitch bought by Amazon, September 8th, 2014. That was 6 years ago.
Wow, that's great. It feels much more recent. Here's the Litro camera. That's another thing that got pretty big and then died.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
2014, episode 33. Oh, man. Looking at these languages, though, I must say the languages we covered are all pretty robust.
Yeah. One of the things that I'm seeing is I had a lot of views on machine learning and statistics stuff. And one of the things that this is like just a lesson for a lot of people is like there's things that now like we have an unconscious understanding for that in 2014 and definitely in 2011 it was really a struggle to understand. Like I have this Markov chains for simulation. And I remember at the time that was a really hard thing to understand, but now I've been using them so much that it's just like a second nature.
Yeah, that's right. It's easy to forget how little we knew then. Like you get used to what you know now, and you feel like you've always known it. Yeah.
Oh, there's a episode. Wow, wait a minute, is that right? So Windows 10 came out in 2015. Windows 10 is 5 years old. That can't be right, really.
I mean, I've secretly been going back and editing all of our show notes to just be more hilarious.
Oh, no, this is an article talking about Windows 10, which is going to come out in the future. But still, I mean, it's like it's going to be about 4 years old. So yeah, in episode 40, we're talking about Windows 10.
So talking about all this stuff that changes, but looking back at this, like a lot of these tools, a lot of these things I still do and use. And like you point out, like wooden computers, there's still things I'm interested in or have hobbies for that have persisted about like 6, 7, 8, 9 years. Like I think I change a lot, but actually looking back, it's kind of like, I'm not sure we really do change that much. Like you still do the machine learning, and I still have like embedded programming stuff. Like things might change a lot, but actually they sort of stay the same.
Yeah, it's like the you sort of normalize the changes, right? So no matter how much things are changing, it kind of feels like a certain rate. And then you look back and you say, wow, it's actually not that. Apple open source Swift. Did they ever do that?
Yeah, I think that happened.
You can just Let me see. Apple Swift GitHub. Oh
So,
yeah,
so
there it is.
yeah. So this is pretty pertinent in episode 48. Do you want to know what my tool of the show was, Jason?
Let's hear it.
Wayward Souls.
No way. Oh my gosh. I actually um I must have got that game because of you.
But then I don't remember it, and you say you loved it. Oh man. Also, we talked a lot about source control, and there's a lot of what I would call sort of roughly dead source control. I feel like it's all just Git and GitHub now. Like, I
Yeah,
really
that's
don't
so
hear
true.
anyone talking about anything else.
Yep.
And that was just not clear in 2013 or 2014 based on what we were talking about.
Yep.
All right. Well, I made
Oh,
it through episode 50, so.
in episode 46, we talk about there's a GitHub gist, like a little GitHub little snippet of code, which are things that you can put in a C++ file that will not make the program crash, but will basically make the person's life really difficult. So
I
if
still talk about this today
yeah,
because of this article.
define if while.
Yeah, so do things like put an if statement that every 1 in 100 times just evaluates true regardless. And it just makes it super hard to debug.
Yeah, that's right. Define if x to be if x and rand is less than 0.99. Can you imagine? Oh my God, if you did that, it would be just total chaos for whoever came after you. And it would be so hard to find.
All right, well, that's been pretty fun. Jason, it's been 9 years.
Yeah.
I don't know what the future holds, but hopefully less latent video conferencing and more awesome tech news.
Yeah, I mean, well, we need to finish with a prediction. Let me see.
I'm gonna.
This is tough.
You know, I've been making a prediction, but I'll make mine. I predict that within 9 years that it's got to be bold. So within 9 years, that I think that the way that high-speed internet works is going to be transformed by the satellite internet stuff. That there's going to be so many extra satellites in orbit. Space is going to change. I think the way that the world has changed, just like how high-speed internet works by getting it via satellites from one of the many companies trying it, the amount of rockets we're sending up. I'm pretty bullish on space. I think people are going to be going into and out of space more than they do today. And I know people have predicted this for decades and decades, but I think the time is coming. I think there's going to be more travel to and from space. We've got SpaceX, Blue Origin, renewed interest in it. The Starlink stuff is happening. I think in the next 10 years, we're going to see a huge transformation in space. And I don't know what the impact will be, but I think it'll be big. I think there'll be a lot of jobs around that industry. And I think it's going to change a lot of how stuff works.
Wow, that's bold. That's bold. So you're thinking like no cable internet, like basically everything is wireless.
Not everything, but I think you'll be able to just get high-speed internet pretty, like your laptop, for instance. Like your laptop today basically gets Wi-Fi, and not many people would pay to have their, computer have a SIM card in it. I mean, maybe people do, I don't know, and have hotspots. I think that kind of thing will just become so cheap and ubiquitous that your laptop will, just use satellite for internet everywhere.
Yeah, that makes sense. All right, my prediction is that I think university education will massively, massively change. I think that people won't get loans anymore. What will happen is there'll still be a loan, but I think basically there'll be a contract where people will invest in college students, and then the college student will pay a certain portion of their salary back to give the return on investment, instead of what we have now where it's a loan system. So I think all of secondary, is that right? Secondary, is that what you call college? Secondary education?
Yes.
Yeah, right. I think all of secondary education will move from a loan system to an investment system where people like literally invest in the future. And I think that is going to like radically change, so many other things. I think that for one, like the immediate change is that like degrees will have to become commercially like worthwhile, right? And I think it's going to cause like more regulation and more like the people who give out these investments will they'll want to have some guarantees that they don't have now. But yeah, I think secondary education will change enormously. I think that, the subjects that are not economically viable, I think that they'll find other ways to sort of teach people outside of like the university. Or people will pay out of pocket, I guess. But I think that, if you look at, for example, STEM, I think that we'll have like all this sort of investment system set up where people say, instead of you spending, $120,000 on credit, I'll pay for your college, but then I want, I don't know, 130,000, or like I want 10% of your salary for the next 15 years. Or I don't know, however it works out. And I think it'll move to that. And I think, yeah, that'll have a huge ramifications.
Interesting. I think it's ISA, right? Income sharing agreement. Having a personal ISA or whatever.
Oh, I'd never heard of that.
Yeah, I think that's the like finance industry term for it.
Income sharing agreement. All right, yeah. So I think college is going to go to at least not all majors.
So it's already more formal.
Majors.
It's happening. Your prediction is coming true.
Done. Solved. But yeah, I think that will be the default way that folks do college, at least for like some of these degrees.
That's also bold. Also bold. I like it. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Cool. All right. We'll catch you folks later. Next month, we have, we're going to talk about working from home and all of that. Thank you so much for your support. Last month we did, we were really in the midst of, quarantine. So people don't know this, but, Patrick and I live in the counties that were the first to get quarantined. So we've been in quarantine for a long time. And so last month, I just live streamed, just myself writing some code. It was really cool to kind of talk to folks and the whole live stream thing. If you like the live stream and being able to talk back and forth during the stream, let us know. That's a format we don't typically do. But if people have interest in that, let us know. But either way, thanks a lot for your support, and be safe out there. The intro music is AXO by Binar Pilot. Programming Throwdown is distributed under a Creative Commons Attribution Share-alike 2.0 license. You're free to share, copy, distribute, transmit the work, to remix, adapt the work, but you must provide attribution to Patrick and I, and share alike in kind.